Already, businesses are struggling, workers are being laid off. The longer it goes on, the more pain is being caused.
Yes, of course. The longer it lasts, and the worse the economic impact. But what could be even worse would be a second wave if we relax those confinement rules too soon. So certainly a solution would be to implement more targeted measures to keep control on the pandemic while allowing some economic activity to resume. So certainly there's nothing like a clear distinction between confinement and a restart of economic activity. There's certainly something in between in terms of targeted measures to avoid at the same time this depression from lasting longer than necessary.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but what targeted measures would you put in place if you don't have testing, if you're not able to test people to see who has contracted COVID-19 in the past?
Well, testing, of course, is really the key point in any kind of targeted measures. Targeting those measures also means targeting some groups within society that are more at risk in this pandemic. But of course, testing is really the key issue as long as along some equipments and very basic ones like face masks. But any strategy would obviously rely on those tools and especially on testing.
A leaked document, a leaked conversation of a cabinet meeting over in the United Kingdom shows that the British finance minister has predicted that growth, the GDP growth in the period ending June, from April to June, will be down 30%. Does that number seem right to you?
Yes, we're really facing an economic free fall. It's much more extreme and it's going much faster than even what happened during the Great Depression 90 years ago. So we're really discussing this kind of numbers at the moment. More than a quarter of global economic activity could be wiped out in just a few months over, let's say, a 1-year horizon. So it's extremely important not only to think in terms of how to implement stimulus or to ease lending conditions. What's really important is for policymakers to think in terms of a backstop to economic activity, being able to pump enough money to make for all these lost income for companies and for individuals. And of course, monetary tools will be essential in doing that. And ideas like helicopter money are now becoming very much mainstream. And I'm afraid Europe might have some difficulty on agreeing on that. But that's really the way forward to avoid a much more a long-lasting depression.
Is it safe to say that there's not going to be, things are not going to snap back to normal overnight? There's going to be a period where where we restart economic activity. So that isn't to say that flights, for instance, are going to resume as normal this summer.
Well, that's true. First of all, in terms of confinement measures, there will the relaxation will take place step by step, obviously. And in terms of the economic impact, of course, so many businesses and individuals have been impacted already in terms of unemployment, in terms of lost revenue, that economic activity couldn't just restart as confinement measures are relaxed. So it will really take for a very bold policy action here, both from governments and central banks to restart economic activity, and this will take time. And in any event, the impacts of the confinement measures and this ongoing depression is going to be deep and to last for a long time.
Indeed, but I just want to jump in there because you've mentioned this term depression before, and obviously there are a lot of comparisons being made to the Great Depression last century. But since then we have as consumers we're used to traveling across the world, paying a lot less than we did even 10 years ago. Is it safe to say that as consumers now we have to rethink, and there's going to be a correction in the way things operate now?
Well, there's going to be really a change in economic and growth models, both from the consumption point of view, but also in terms of production, with really the focus on reindustrializing our economies, not only really to have a safer and a more stable growth model, but really in order to be able to face those health crises in the future, this lack of key equipment and very basic ones like face masks really points to these flows in our economic models. So certainly things are going to change, but that also takes time. And the emergency measures will not be enough to implement that change.
We'll see what happens. Rémi Bourgeot, thank you very much for joining us on the program.